Ow, my arm hurts. Today on SB Baseball.
That's terrible.
And welcome to the SB Baseball podcast where we try hard.
Yeah.
I'm Alan.
Hey.
How you doing, buddy?
That was kind of funny, but I was like, oh man, I mean, they really hurt their arms. Like,
Right,
you know,
they do.
You're like,
Yes.
ow, like you're like a
Ow,
fiber.
my arm. Well, it's the
They get hurt.
They do.
It's a serious injury.
So it's a pandemic, according to Justin Verlander.
Did he have to have a Tommy John surgery?
I don't know if he had. I think he's had Tommy John before. Actually, according to statistics, last year 34.2% of pitchers that pitched in the MLB last year had Tommy John surgery at some point in time. Up until then, right? And the numbers just continued to grow. You know, back in 2019, it was 29%. And it's gone all the way up to 34.2% since then.
I went ahead and looked up Justin Verlander. He has a shoulder injury in 2024, a teres major in 2023, calf 2022, elbow 2021, and a forearm in 2020.
Okay, so no Tommy John then.
It doesn't say.
Okay.
I mean, unless teres major or something. But usually it'd say UCL or whatever. But yeah, anyways.
But it's been increasing.
Yeah.
You know, this year we've already had. Let's see here. We've had Yuri Perez, Shane Bieber, Spencer Strider are all shelved for Tommy John.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had Framber Valdez, who got shelved the other day because of elbow soreness. Mm-hmm. And I think they're putting him on like a 10-day IL.
Yeah. The Grome's still on it from last year.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not like,
and that's his second.
So everybody seems to think that the pitch clock has something to do with it.
Well, not everybody.
Some people.
Some pitchers are saying that the MLB Players Association Union.
They want to blame somebody.
Right? You know, they're saying that the shorter pitch clock, which I'm like, okay, why is the shorter pitch clock causing it? They're saying, well, they have less time to recover between pitches and it's making their arms more fatigued. Oh, okay. Well, we didn't used to have this with pitchers back in the day, and they would
fast pitch all the time.
Fast pitch, right?
Yeah.
And games were sitting there around the time that games are now. And I guess the argument is, you know, well, the pitchers aren't used to that, right? And so you're starting to tax them a lot more than what they were, right? At a quicker rate. You went from taking your time to, okay, now I got to move faster. And then they shorten the pitch clock again this year. But not everybody feels that way. Like Justin Verlander, you know, they asked Verlander about this because he's rehabbing right now, had a rehab start, and they asked him about it.
Oh, you wrote this down.
I wrote this down because I liked what he had to say, right?
Okay.
He says it's easy to blame the pitch clock.
Mm-hmm.
He said, but in reality, everything has changed. Everyone is throwing as hard as they can. They're spinning the ball as hard as they can. It's just a lot has changed. But also, he talked about you've had some other pitchers talk about a lot of things changed in 2016, and that's when they changed the ball.
Yeah,
and the ball started flying out, and so that's when pitchers really started to work on throwing a lot harder and throwing as hard as you can.
Who was that pitcher for? Was it Tampa Bay or something like that? Kraft. Or something like that. He was mentioning he was talking about the ball and how it was changing. Like in say in Japan, it's got a little texture to it, so it's easier to grip and whatnot. And you know, it's not like sometimes you have a problem gripping the ball or whatever. So some people like to use a little bit of tack or something, or what's it called, spider tack or something. But it's, you know, I don't mind that if you're just trying to get a grip on the ball or whatever. But then, you know, it goes into excess where now they're full on cheating, like, you know, greasing up the ball. But I think that there was a player or a commentator, somebody like that, was just talking about how these kids now are blowing their arms out in like little league, high school.
Yeah, and that's something else that you know I've got
college.
Here. But going with the foreign substance real quick, like Tyler Glasnow, who actually struck out 14 last night.
That's who I'm talking about.
He tore his elbow ligament, had Tommy John surgery, and it was when they banned the substance. And that's what you saw, an increase in the ball speed between 2015 and 21 when pitchers were using that substance. But it's illegal, right? It's using it for.
Now they're checking you after every inning.
They're checking you after every inning. So it's okay. You either got to make it legal or not. But everyone's just throwing the ball so much harder. And that goes back to, you know, what you were just talking about with the youth. And like, there's a website out there called Perfect. It's called Perfect Game.
Okay.
Perfect Game USA, and they have scouting reports on 13 and 14-year-olds about their velocity, their spin rate, the travel team rankings start at 9U.
Travel
Like,
team is the
you're
biggest
just-
scam on earth. Like the money
it's-
make like AAU and basketball and like travel league is just like the biggest scam ever.
And Verlander talked about how kids are just learning to throw as hard as they can
Mm-hmm.
and spin. He goes, if I'd grown up during this time, he goes, I'd be a completely different pitcher. He goes, I wasn't really that great when I was a youth. I was growing into my body. He's like, I didn't find my speed until I was in college,
Mm-hmm.
because it forced him to work on technique.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, you've got pitchers out there like Greg Maddux back in the day. He wasn't throwing it, but he could put the ball anywhere he wanted.
Yeah, I think he topped out at like 91 or 92 maybe.
Something
And then,
like
but he
that, right.
rarely even got up there. And he threw 90. And then most of his other stuff that was I mean, he threw a 90 if he was like, you know, let me just throw it off just a little bit. You know, it's you used to 86, mile an hour
Right.
curveballs, or it just.
But it's
You can put it wherever you want it.
we're in that live ball era where the ball's popping, so pitchers are trying to do everything they can.
Mhm.
They're throwing the ball as hard as they can, and their bodies aren't accustomed to that, right?
Yeah.
Your body's not built to handle that.
Yeah. And
Well-
they're getting to you at a young age, and we know people who their kids have already had to have like, surgeries and stuff like that because their arm's already shot.
Yeah.
Like, and now they put them on a pitch count, but okay, well, you're still playing 5 games a week, and things like that.
You're playing so much more, and
You go from pitcher to be a catcher. You're still throwing a ball just as much,
right? And that was
or
one thing they
shortstop.
talked about. These kids, yeah, they're on the pitch count, but they go from pitching to catching right after that, and you're touching the ball every single play, just about, right? Unless the ball's put in play or foul,
Mhm.
and you just gotta. We're putting too much pressure on the kids, on the youth.
Mhm.
We're foregoing the technique, really. I'll see these kids pitching. It's just it's awful, right? And I can speak more on like the softball side with my daughter, and I see some of these kids going out there, and they have people showing them how to pitch who don't know how to, who don't know the techniques. They don't know how to do this stuff. When my daughter wanted to learn how to pitch, we went to a pitching coach. I didn't just look stuff up on YouTube, which a lot of people will do, and try and do it that way, right?
Mhm.
We took her to someone who knows how to do it, and we don't pitch a ton, right? We do it now. Softball's a little bit different motion and things, but
It's more
still,
natural motion, I think.
it's more of a natural motion. But there's kids her age that are playing travel. They're select teams, and these kids are pitching 3 to 4 times in a weekend.
Yeah,
and I'm like, it's not good for these kids.
No,
I don't.
absolutely not.
We gotta.
I mean, especially
relax.
for the kid, like let's just be honest, especially for the boys that are whipping it at 70, 80 miles an hour. You know what I mean? Like, and they're putting so much pressure in their arm. It's like, someone mentioned the rubber band, right? It's like, you keep stretching out the rubber band and going, because every pitch is full speed.
Right.
And you can't even say, all right, let's teach them some junk balls, because then you're putting pressure on the elbow and just trying to just whip that curveball at, whatever off, and just watching the motion. If you're watching like slow motion, it's terrifying, because the arm itself is just bending in a weird, awkward position.
And you got like, was a Tim Lincecum, watching him pitch when he first came up, right? It's just such a violent motion, and it's not just the arm damage that he's doing, but he's doing the damage to the back.
Yeah.
Right.
That
and
big
it's just
jerk off the mound.
Right.
There
Just so much
that.
that they're doing, and they're doing this at such a young age, and they start so young,
Mm-hmm.
and they go all the way through. And that's why you see guys' careers, Strasburg, right? He's a good example of someone that threw the piss out of the ball, but by the time he got up to the majors, he was kind of wore out. Right?
Yeah. Well, in high school and
Tommy
college,
John Tommy John his first year.
Oh God.
Yeah.
And
then he was on an innings count the next season, and he was good, but he never got back to what he was.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're saying it's not the pitch count?
I'm going to say it's all of these factors.
So everything,
it's a little bit of everything, but I don't.
High school,
I think
college.
the pitch count, I would say, is a smaller portion of it, as it's mostly just the wear and the tear, and just the physical abuse they're doing to themselves by throwing as hard as they can every time.
Yeah,
right.
Everything just that
It's just
motion. I just wanted to pull it up by year. Did you have anything by year or whatnot?
As far, well, I have like the percentage of players in the league that had Tommy John.
Okay.
So like in 2019, 29.8%, 2021, 30.5%, 2022, 34%, and then last year, 34.2% of players that pitched had at some point in time already had Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, so there's 243 pitcher injuries in 2021, 2026, so 243 in 2021, 226 in 2022, 233 in 2023, and then obviously you mentioned the sticky stuff enforcement happened mid 2021. So okay, let's kind of going down, right? No, is that no? Yeah,
no.
Yeah, 243 to 233.
Yeah,
so technically, it's going down.
Yeah,
and obviously it dropped, all the way to 226 in 2022. But yeah, it's just I don't think it's pitch clock. I really don't.
No, it's.
I don't think it's that at all.
Is that 20 seconds really going to make a difference on it? Again, it's every pitch, so it does add up, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think it does.
Would they lower it from last year to this year?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah,
I think it's like from like 20 to 15 seconds or something like that.
I really enjoyed. I don't think they needed to move it down again because I think we saw how fast it sped up the game last year.
Yeah,
and it was enjoyable.
Several sub 2 hour games last year.
It was perfect, right? I thought, and it's like if they believe it's that, if they really do think it's that, by All-Star break, I wouldn't be surprised if they pushed it back up. You know what I mean?
MLB is pushed back, and I think they actually quoted like how pitching injuries have gone down overall, but since you've seen this spike already early in the season, but again, these guys are guys that throw the ball hard.
Yeah.
Right. Shane Bieber throws the ball hard.
Yeah. Wakefield,
high strikeout
guys like
right?
Wakefield aren't having Tommy John.
Well, he reinvented himself.
Yeah.
Right. He had to because of injuries.
Yeah.
And became a knuckleballer. Right. There's a reason why Charlie Huff pitched into his 90s in the MLB because he's just chunking knuckleballs, right?
50-mile-an-hour knuckleballs. No, you don't even take a big old step off I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. Or is it like that? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Spencer Strider, another hard throwing, pitcher. Framber Valdez, another hard throwing pitcher.
Yeah.
That's what all these guys have in common is they're hard throwing pitchers.
Yeah.
Guys that throw everything they got behind it every time they go up there. But also that's the reason why these guys only pitch 5-6 innings.
Yeah, they tucker themselves out by the 6th.
They wear themselves out. Verlander talked about how there's no incentive for a team for a pitcher to pitch long into a game because there's just no incentive for it. Like he talked about like him and Scherzer had talked last year. It's like, hey, you want to incentivize pitchers for staying in the game longer. You tie that pitcher to the DH.
Yeah.
When that pitcher comes out, your DH comes out.
Funny.
So then it will force guys to change the way they pitch so that they can pitch longer.
Yeah.
Because then teams are going to want a guy who's going to throw, not 8-9 innings.
Yeah. If you get a guy that you hard throw, like pound the zone kind of guy, or just try to blow pitchers or blow right by batters. Okay. Yeah. 6 innings. Then you bring in your reliever that can do the same thing, but just 2 innings worth. And then you bring in your closer who does it for an inning.
I think it was, I'm trying to remember who it was the other day, but they threw a 2-hit shutout. It might've been the Guardians. They threw a 2-hit shutout with 7 pitchers.
Just kept bringing them in.
7 pitchers in a game.
And we hear about that, like, I don't know, a handful of times a year. It seems like, it just seems to happen. It's like a weird thing.
Yeah. And through doing the MLB recap, like I'm going through this and you're seeing all these shutouts, but these pitchers are pitching 5 innings, 6 innings. Like,
it was like Darvish.
I don't want to be that guy, but like back in the day, if you're throwing a shutout, you didn't come out.
Yeah.
You kept throwing because nobody can hit off you.
Yeah.
Right. But they're 5. They got to get to that 5th inning so they can get that win.
Yeah.
Right. Which is absurd. You can have a guy throw 4 2/3 shutout baseball, and the guy who comes in after him throws a third of an inning, gets the win.
I don't think anybody should get the win. And maybe the closer at that point, they just get the win. Even though they get the save and the win because, you only threw 4 2/3 anyway.
If it even is a save situation, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
She went 5-0. There's no save.
Yeah. He just went in there and did
just nobody gets a win. It was just a game. Who won it? Nobody.
Just losers. Losers. We're all losers here.
But yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. But I think it starts at the youth.
Yeah.
With everything, it starts at the beginning with how you're going through and doing things. I mean, you talk to a lot of people, they would rather have a kid who's never played before versus a kid who's played before and has all these bad habits, because it's a lot easier to train that kid who's never played before versus that kid that has all these bad habits.
Try to get them to break
and
all
trying to get them to fix that. So
absolutely.
I don't know. Let's know what your guys' thoughts are.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us in the comments how dumb we are and how it's all the pitch clock.
I'm sure it's coming.
Look forward to
They
it.
love us.
And while we're at it, let's get rid of umpires. They're the reason. Because they're enforcing the pitch clock. So it's their fault.
I blame them.
Yep.
And they can't call balls and strikes. So they cause more pitches.
They cause more pitches. If they just call them all strikes like they're supposed to, a lot less pitches.
Robo-umps.
Hey, thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Drop a rating. As always, I'm Alan.
Rapid Dave.
Talk to you guys later. Deuces.
Stupid umpires.
Thank you for listening to the SB Baseball Podcast. Ciao.